What's up, duelists? Welcome back. Today I'm going to talk about my Despia deck. I'm excited to show you guys this. I've been playing it in paper a lot, which I've been having a lot of fun with it. And I think this deck is so much fun. It is so much fun. It is such a cool deck. It is such a cool deck. It's brought a lot of old players like out of retirement. A lot of people are talking about how fun this format is. And honestly, I think this current format of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is going to go down as one of the best formats of all time. And there's a few reasons for that. And I think the first reason, the number one reason, is this deck right here. This deck is very skill intensive. It's very technical in the way you got to play it. It's very, interactive. It's interactive, but it doesn't negate, which I think is the biggest thing. All of your cards are going to go through. There's no, solemn judgments, like a million of that. There's a lot of removal. Don't, don't get me wrong, that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? The fucking banish whatever with the Mirror Jade, Ice Blade Dragon, super polymerization. But you're not negating things, which I think is really big. I think it's really healthy for the game. I think that's really, really cool. I think when the best decks are not negating everything you're doing and you're still getting to play the game, it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling for sure. If you like this video, if you like this stuff, I'm on my way to 5K subscribers. Make sure and, subscribe. There's a lot of really major announcements I'm going to be making in the next few days. A lot of major announcements. Some good. I think one kind of not so good, but we'll talk about it when we get there. And there's some good stuff. So make sure you're subscribed. For sure. I can't wait to have more people watching, seeing the beauty of Edison format, seeing the beauty of all these other formats like the modern format with all these sick decks. Let's just get right into the list. What have I got? I got 3 Albaz, the Jester of Despia. This guy's really important. He's like your Machina Gear Frame. He's like your Stratos. He searches for any branded spell or trap from your deck to your hand. So that can mean Branded Fusion, Branded Red, Branded Opening, or Despia Theater of the Branded. I don't play any of the other branded cards. After playing this deck a lot, I feel like these are the 4 that are the best, that work the best for me. I don't like Branded Lost. I'm going to get into that in a bit. I don't love Branded Retribution. I like it more than I like Branded Lost, but I don't love it. It's just a little bit awkward because you have to shuffle something back. It's only really good in the mid to late game, which it comes up. Don't get me wrong, it comes up. And yeah, all this other stuff is like meme worthy at best. So, yep, that's pretty much it. Those are the branded spells and traps that I am playing in my deck. You got to play 3 Albaz because he's your starter. He's also got a second effect. So one thing to note about all the Despian monsters is they have 2 effects. The first effect is something that is like setting you up or like getting stuff going. And then the second effect is something that like helps you stay in the game. A lot of it's like recursive effects is for their second effect. So the second effect of Albaz is when your fusion monsters are destroyed by battle or they leave the field. So that means if they're banished, if they're returned to hand or bounce back to the deck, you can target an effect monster your opponent controls, special summon him, negate that effect, and you get a free body. It makes sure that all your fusion monsters, if they die, you get a guy back. The only issue is that you can only use one of these effects per turn. So when you special summon it back, you don't get the search. But that's fine. Usually you just want the body, and it's a cool little effect failure like negate effect, which it can be nice. Next up, I played 2 copies of Despian Tragedy. The third copy does come up. I'm going to be honest, it does come up, but it's also not a great card in your opening hand. It's not a bad card in your opening hand. It works well with the Fright for stuff, but it's not a great card in your opening hand. And I wanted to have as many ways to find Branded Fusion as possible. So I cut the 3rd Despian Tragedy for a Springens kit. This guy's kind of cool. I think it's one of the Tri-Brigade monsters or something, but it's got a different name for some reason. If you fusion summon, or if you have a fusion summon that mentions Fallen of Albaz, you can special summon it. And when you normal or special summon it, you get to add a branded spell or trap that's banished or in your deck or in your graveyard to your hand. I think. Yeah, to your hand, yeah. And then you place 1 card from your hand on the bottom of the deck. Which is, it's worse Albaz, basically, but it can get stuff back from your graveyard or your banish zone, which is pretty cool. It lets you recurse some of your spells and traps. And also another thing to note is that it can be activated in the same turn as Albaz. So if you have 2 Albaz, let's say you have Albaz and like branded opening or something, and you want a branded opening into Albaz, your second Albaz, you can't activate it that turn. Like, sure, it's fine the next turn, but let's say your Albaz gets stopped. That's awkward because now you can't activate the second one. Whereas if you have Albaz plus Springens Kit, you can like or branded opening in any case, and spring his kit, you can go, oh my god, the DB lag already happening. It's been terrible the last few days. Okay, I'm gonna straight up tell you guys, because this is something that's it's been on my mind. It's been on my mind a little bit. Dueling Book's a problem. Straight up, the servers are really bad, and especially the last few days, it's been like almost unbearable. I've had to redo takes. This is actually like the 5th take of me trying to do this video. Straight up, this is like the 5th take of me trying to do this video where I talk about my Despia list, and it's just because the site keeps kicking me off. And I only have so much time in a day to record a video, and I can't keep doing these takes over and over again. So what I've done to sort of move forward with things is I've ordered a bunch of over-the-table like gear to be able to record over-the-table matches. I've ordered a bunch of trading cards, so we'll be able to do some paper stuff in the very near future. I'm hoping this DB stuff is fixed by RBET3, because that's my biggest worry, and I don't know. I don't know. If there's alternatives to Dueling Book, please leave them in the description below. I am looking for alternatives, something with servers that are a little bit more stable, servers that I can kind of rely on to host a tournament. You get the idea. Okay, back to what I was talking about. Spring his kit. Yeah, I was talking about Spring his kit. It's kind of your 4th Albaz, basically. But you can activate it in the same turn you activate Albaz. Despian Tragedy. This guy is really, really good. I think this is one of the best cards in the deck. I would play 3, but I want to play 40 cards. And I like everything in this deck. I don't want to cut anything. So, I'm playing 2. But, basically, my 41st card would be a 3rd Despian Tragedy. If he's sent to the graveyard by a card effect or banished by a card effect, you can add 1 Despia monster from your deck to your hand, except Despian Tragedy. So, Herodas for any of your Despian monsters, you can, except, obviously, Tragedy, but you can get Albaz, you can get Ad Libitum, Despian Comedy, or Dramaturge, and all these guys are very good in different situations. So it just replaces himself when he's used as a fusion material with like polymerization or with branded fusion or whatever. Just incredible. Really, really incredible effect. But the second effect is where things get insane. His recursive effect, the like recursive effect from the Despia monsters, is he can banish himself from the graveyard, then target 1 branded spell or trap in your graveyard and set it to your field. So it's a straight up Magician of Faith or Mask of Darkness, but faster because it's not a flip effect. You can just use it from your graveyard. So you can send it from your graveyard, or send from your deck to your graveyard. Like, let's say I use Branded Fusion, I send it to the graveyard. I don't have to use the search effect if I don't want to search. Like, let's say I'm out of targets. I can still then use his effect to banish him to set either my Branded Fusion again, or a Branded Red I've already used, or I can even set the Theater of the Branded, which is this fucking really sick card I'll get into in a second. And this card's just amazing. It's like straight up, like, there are cards to this type of effect that were errataed and banned, like straight up. Like Dark Magician of Chaos was errataed, like Magician of Faith was banned for way longer than it should have been, and those cards are worse versions of this. This is a very insane card. I think if they're gonna hit this deck, they're gonna hit this card probably to 0. It's very broken. It's very, very broken. Anyway, on to the next stuff. Ad Libitum of Despia. This guy is you kind of need him. He's kind of whack. I don't like drawing it. It's not a great draw because he's an 8-star. You can't like summon him. He doesn't really get you started. But he is a name. He is something you can fusion with. And when you use him as a fusion material, he has a really, really good effect where if he's sent to the graveyard or banished as a fusion material, you can target one of your Despia monsters or level 8 or higher fusion monsters. So this can revive either a Despia or level 8 or higher fusion monster that is banished or in your graveyard, which is amazing. This card is like D-Shifter, no problem. D-Fissure, no problem. All those cards that like banished graveyards, you can just play through that. They Mirror Jade your stuff, bring it back, no problem. It makes it so the banish zone is just another graveyard. This deck, one of its biggest strengths is that there's no banish zone with this deck. Everything that goes to the graveyard gets its effect, and everything that gets banished gets the same effect. The only thing it matters with is like specifically like Edge Chain and like the non-Despia stuff, but for specifically the Despia monsters, the banish zone isn't real. You could theoretically play what's this guy? What's the name? What's the card called? D-Shifter. You could theoretically play D-Shifter in this deck, but I think it'd be a little awkward for a lot of reasons because Branded Red needs the graveyard. But I mean, theoretically, you could do it. Because all these effects, they don't care. That's one of the biggest strengths. And this guy, there's some combos with him. I'll explain it in a second. Despian Comedy. I play this card. I know a lot of people don't, but I do it. I think it's a nice little utility monster. If he's in your hand, if he's in your hand, you can discard him to protect one of your Despia monsters from being targeted. So let's say your opponent targets your Albaz with an Effect Veiler or an Imperm. You can pitch him, negate it. Let's say they target your Queritus with an Imperm or something, or they target it with their own like Albaz or something. Whatever, you can pitch this to negate that effect. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. But really the reason I like using it is for the second effect. If it's in your graveyard, quick effect, you can tribute a fusion monster or special summon it from the graveyard. This helps you play around effect negation on your fusion monsters. This helps you play around skill drain, effect failure, imperm, those types of things. Helps you play around that. What you do is you summon the fusion monster, you activate the effect, and then you chain the comedy either to, if they're using a floodgate negation like skill drain, you chain it directly to the effect because skill drain's already face up, and skill drain only negates face up monsters. If they're using like a Veiler or an Imperm, you wait for them to Veiler or Imperm, then you chain this, sack your monster. Their target is not in play anymore, it fizzles, you get your effect, and that's usually what you care about. You usually don't care about your monster sticking around, you usually care about the effects. And we'll get into why that matters for like specifically Lubellion and Guardian Chimera in a second. Dramaturge of Despia. This guy's an OTK / secondary interrupt that you can go into. He's a weaker card, for sure. He's a weaker inclusion. He's one of the weaker inclusions of the deck. But I think he's mandatory because oftentimes your OTK setups deal like 5,000. And just having him as your extra 3,000 points of damage for that consistent OTK setup, and also having him to negate like Synchros and Xyz is kind of nice too. So like, he's cool. He's cool. I think this card is one of my favorite cards. It's actually one of my favorite arts in the whole deck. Let's zoom in on that. Intentional zoom, unlike the accidental zoom. Let's look at this art. This is a sick art. This card looks way cooler than it should, honestly. It's very cool. He's a boss monster. Awesome artwork. Honestly, on all these Despia cards, very cool artwork. But yeah, this card's very solid. He has the same effect similar to Ad Libitum if he's banished or sent to the graveyard for a fusion material. You special summon him instead of special summoning like another monster or whatever. But he's a very strong monster, so you know, it's pretty legit. For my only hand traps in the deck, I'm playing 2 DD Crows. I think the mirror match is the most important matchup. I think that's the most played matchup right now. I think most people are playing Despia, so I think DD Crow is like, it's one of the better hand traps. I like DD Crow a lot better than I like the Ghost Girls. Let's talk about the Ghost Girls a little bit because they're not in my deck, and I fucking hate these cards. I think they're actually really bad. Ghost Bell and Ash Blossom, let's talk about these. And of course, by extension, the Ogre card. I forget what it's called. It's like Ghost Ogre. Ghost Ogre I like a little bit more than the other two. Reason being is it's a light. So at the very least, it can be a fusion material for all the stuff that requires lights. And it also works while it's face up on the field. So you can like summon this and use it to represent super polymerization and still have its effect, basically. But the other two Ghost Girls, the Ghost Bell and Ash Blossom, they have none of that upside. They are not attributes that work well for your fusions. They are hard once per turn hand traps. They are very bad into Branded Lost, which is a card that a lot of decks are playing. I'll get into that in a second. And I don't like them. You draw multiples, they're bad. You draw a 6 card, it's bad. DD Crow is much better because your opponent's going to set Branded in red. So 6 card DD Crow is actually very good. DD Crow is not going to interrupt until it's your turn, basically, because Branded in red is the point of interruption where DD Crow matters. So 6 card DD Crow is actually very good, unlike 6 card Ghost Girl where it's not good. That's basically my reasoning behind playing 2 main deck DD Crows as the hand traps. Also, if you draw 2 DD Crows, it's not bad. You can use both of them in the same turn if you wanted to, theoretically. And they're darks, so you can use them as fusion material monster for the fusion material that, or the fusion monster that actually matters, which is Lubellion, like Drago Stap, fucking Starving Venom. You can use them for all the stuff that you can't use a light or an earth or a fairy, fire for. Yeah. Next up, 2 Fallen Albaz. These are important. This guy makes all of your most important fusions. He makes the Albion the Branded Dragon and Lubellion the Searing Dragon. These guys are really sick. They're like combo starters. When you make them, they fusion summon another monster. So it's like this fusion chain, basically. And part of the reason I was talking about like needing to resolve these effects and not necessarily needing the bodies in play earlier with Despia and Comedy is because these guys can like very easily use themselves as material if they're in the graveyard. What happens is oftentimes your starting play, well, I'll get into the starting play, but it's Branded Fusion, send Tragedy, send Albaz, and then you make Lubellion, and then you shuffle back the Lubellion, and you shuffle back the Albaz, and you make Mirror Jade. Mirror Jade's like your end monster. He's very good. He's very, very powerful effect. We'll talk about this in a second, but you make those with Fallen of Albaz. He's also got a very solid effect when you draw him. You can summon him, and then he has a super poly effect built in, which is actually really good. This guy can break boards on his own if the boards are negate light, which is great. That's fantastic. It's really, really strong. He can force effect failures. He can trade the weakest card in your hand for an effect failure. Like, let's say you open Albaz Edgem Chain. You can go summon Albaz, pitch Edgem Chain, bait the negate, and then search off the Edge chain and then fight for patchwork and get going with your engine. So he's actually a really solid card to draw, which unlike the Fusion Destiny stuff. So another popular thing that's really popular, or was really popular right before Despia, was this Fusion Destiny stuff. The issue with this is you have to include some of the worst cards ever see play in your deck. Like Destiny Hero Dasher is a bad card. Like, this is just straight up a fucking Sword Stalker. You don't want this in your deck. You don't. You really just don't want this in your deck. Drawing it is terrible. Whereas drawing Fallen of Albaz is like, this card is a threat. This card can break boards on its own, which is insane. Like if you have this with like a droplet or something, you're killing it. You're killing it right now. So I think this card is actually really sick. It's a Garnet, but not really. Edge Chain, this is part of the Fright for Patchwork package. So Fright for Patchwork is a card that says add one Edge monster and add one polymerization from your deck to your hand. So it's Pot of Greed. This card is broken too. I think if they're going to hit this deck, they might even hit this card, because this card is really silly good. Really, really silly good. It's straight up Pot of Greed. And the reason it's Pot of Greed is because, yes, you draw two specific cards, which, as you know, like cards like Salvage, stuff like this in the past, like, you could say it's Pot of Greed, but it's not really. But this is actually Pot of Greed, because you search Polymerization, you search Edge Chain, and then you're able to put together an untargetable Guardian Chimera, which is very difficult to negate. And this card actually does draw two generic cards. So it is Pot of Greed, but on top of that, it summons a 3,300 monster and pops a card your opponent controls. So it's like Pot of Greed on crack. It's actually insane. I think this is like one of the best cards in the deck. If you have it in your opening hand, you're just feeling on top of the world. And I think it's important to play it. If you're not playing it, you're messing up. It's actually just too good. It's way too good. Especially because Guardian Chimera. I mean, this is the guy. This is the guy right here. Yeah. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it in a second. I'm playing 2 lights to make the Albion from deck with Branded Fusion. I'm playing Fairy Tale Snow. Can't imagine playing the deck without this card. This card's very broken. It's an interrupt from your discard pile, it's like a free interrupt. It's so good. This card is insane. I think you should play this card in every deck that can support it. Don't even question it. Don't even ask. Don't even think about it. Just play it in every deck that can support it. If your deck can send this to the graveyard easily, play it. Incredible Ecclesia. This is a card I'm not sold on, but I do want a second light, and you can only play 1 snow. So, yeah. It's solid. It's solid, right? Like, it's got a Cyber Dragon effect, which can help you get your Super Polys live. It can tribute itself to special summon the Fallen of Albaz from your deck as a quick effect, which is pretty cool. It's got an effect here at the end. During the end phase, if a fusion monster was sent to the graveyard, you can add it to your hand. This is actually a cool effect, because sometimes you'll make boards that they're not the most stable, but you're making a board with the ability to rebuild, and this card gives you a lot of ability to rebuild. Let's say I make like a Mirror Jade and like a Albion or something. Sure, my opponent's going to break that, but at the end phase, let's say they break that and I have Ecclesia in my graveyard, the Albion was sent to the graveyard, and the Mirror Jade was also sent to the graveyard. I get to blow up their board, I get to search a branded spell, and I get to add this back to my hand. And it's just like, you broke my board, but did you really? Like, you spent cards and I lost nothing. So that's kind of the strength of this card, I think. I think the last effect is the best effect on it. The first effects are relevant, they do come up, but I think the last effect is relevant. It's also a tuner, but I don't have any synchros. I don't think that really matters. Alright, onto the spells. Triple Branded Fusion, Triple Branded Red, Triple Branded Opening. I think this is no questions asked what you should play. I've seen some lists playing 2 Branded in Red, and I can understand that, because it doesn't start you. It doesn't get you going. But it's so good. It's so important in the mirror match to have one and like circulate it. I think you just got to have the 3. Hard drawing one's not even that bad. It's another way to play around Effect Veiler. Let's talk about what these spells do. So Branded Fusion is a fusion spell. It makes an Albaz fusion, so one of these 4 different fusions here, by sending materials from your hand, deck, or field as fusion material. So you play this, you get a double Foolish, which is insane. You send Tragedy, you send Albaz. You get a special summon your Lubellion, and then the Tragedy gets you a search, and then you pitch a card, and then you fusion summon the Mirror Jade. I mean, the search happens after you pitch the card, but yeah, basically you get the idea. It's an insane card. This card is insane. It's very broken. It's like Shadow Fusion without the limitations. There is a restriction for the rest of the turn. You can only summon fusion monsters from your extra deck, but look at my extra deck. Do you see anything that's not a fusion monster? Don't look at the Link Rebo. Look away. Don't look at the Link Rebo. You don't see anything that's not a fusion monster. So it's not a restriction. It's not a real restriction. It's a deck building restriction, but it's not a play restriction, which is great. You can only activate one per turn, but if you resolve one, then you're winning the game, so it doesn't really matter. Branded in red is a Raise Dead effect. If you play Magic the Gathering, you'll know what that is. You can fusion summon after you Raise Dead into a level 8 or a higher monster, and you banish the fusion materials. It can come from your hand or field, and it can't attack directly this turn. Usually doesn't matter because you're usually casting this on your opponent's turn. So what happens is you'll set up with the branded fusion. You'll send your Tragedy. You'll send your Albaz. You'll search Alubear. You'll end on Mirror Jade, Alubear, whatever. You'll set the branded in red. And then on their turn, you brand it in red. Add back Tragedy. Banish the Tragedy. Banish the Alubear. Banish whatever. You can either make a Guardian Chimera, get another search from the Tragedy. If you banish another one of these Despia monsters, you get a special summon. This card is usually a +4 or +5 if it resolves. Usually. Which is fucked. It is so fucked. If you resolve it with Tragedy and like one of these other dudes, it's like a +4. Straight up. It's insane. And not only is it a +4, but it's a +4 with like instant speed. Like it can happen at any point in the game. It can interrupt your opponent's plays. It can set your opponent back so much. It is one of the most fun cards to resolve in Yu-Gi-Oh! The carding game. Whatever, Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading. I can't even speak. This card is so dope. This card is fucking sick. I need an ultimate rare one of these. I need an ultimate rare because I would cop. I would cop. Like, I'm going to be real. Okay, branded opening. This is exactly what it says it is. It's an opening card. It has similar effect to these Despia monsters in that it has 2 effects. The first effect is you discard 1 card. That's not a cost, keep in mind. So it will activate your Tragedy if you discard it because it's part of the effect. Then you take a Despia monster from your deck, and you can either add it to your hand or special summon it, which is super sick. You don't have to special summon the monster right away. If you don't want to lead on, like let's say you want to lead on branded opening, but you want to add one of these guys to hand to be able to fuse from hand in order to make sure you draw a card from your Guardian Chimera, like that's something you can do. It just gives you this nice little versatile little selection thing. And the artwork is absolutely crazy, but it's really sick looking. I'm not exactly sure what's happening in it. I think it's like the Tri-Brigade is like battling the Despia. And it's a sick artwork. Like the whole art design on these branded cards is so dope. The branded red with the wings of the Masquerade, and then the branded fusion with the Lubellion and I think that's Mirror Jade. Yeah, I think that's Mirror Jade. And they're like dancing and like dueling or whatever. That's so sick. Like, oh, this is so sick. Anyway, branded opening's got this other effect. If a fusion monster you control would be destroyed by a card effect, you can banish it from your graveyard instead. So it's a replacement effect, which is super, super sick. On top of that, it protects every fusion you control, which shoutouts to Brandon from Format Library. He showed me that. I thought it only protected one. Apparently it protects all of them, which is actually so sick. It's actually so sick. So if your opponent tries to wipe your board, let's say they have a Lightning Vortex, let's say they like use their Mirror Jade to try and wipe your board, you just have branded opening, protect your board, and you're good to OTK. You're good to go. Got to play Foolish Burial to send Tragedy. It's just a starter. Got to play Called By to fight through bullshit graveyard effects like DPE and stuff. I think this card is a staple. I think you should always play this card in every deck. I think it's just a really good card. Straight up, it's not a miss in any matchup. Straight up, like I feel like I very rarely side this card out. I even leave it in versus Eldritch because you hit the Golden Lord and it's like. It's very good. This is a really strong card. I wish it was at 3 because I think it would make the format a lot more fun. But I'll play it at 1. I'll play it at 1 because it's a fucking solid card. Fight for Patchwork, talked about this. Polymerization, you only play it because of the patchwork. But it does have another thing I want to mention. Polymerization being in your graveyard makes your Guardian Chimera untargetable. That's part of his effect. It's very important. It does come up. Makes it so they can't imperm or effect failure it. Super huge. They can't like steal it with like targeting effects. I think Natasha or something. There's a few other things that come up. You got to play 3 Super Poly. So this is my going second card of choice. This card can't be negated. Fuck Omni Negates. I don't fuck with that shit. It's so whack. I just want to eat them with the Super Polys and not have to worry about it. That's something that I hate about modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Is that there's Omni Negates and there's not a lot of this like split second shit. I think they should print more cards like Super Poly. Like straight up, they should print this card. What is it? Soul Taker? They should print this, but with that wording. Neither player can activate cards or effects in response to this card's activation. They should print this. And I know they kind of have with like the Kaijus, which is like these guys, which just tribute an opponent's monster. But you give your opponent a fucking 7,000 monster doing this. That's whack. Just print Soul Taker, make it unreactable, and the game just becomes amazing again. Everyone starts playing the unreactable Soul Taker. They're not playing like stupid shit like Forbidden Droplet. Stuff that's like really awkward. Like, I'm going to get into Forbidden Droplet in a second, but Yeah, this is my favorite going second card because you get something out of it. It gets you going. It pitches your Snow, your Edge Chains, your whatever. Unfortunately, you don't get Tragedy because the discard is a cost. But, you know, you can do some other stuff. You can pitch Opening, have that effect in the graveyard, whatever. You can pitch dead stuff that you've opened multiples of. Or you can pitch like stuff that like later in the game, like Fight for Patchwork, that no longer has targets. You just pitch that and it becomes free Super Poly because these come for free. Triple Tactics Talent. So I don't play Branded Lost. This is a card that a lot of people play. And the reason I don't play is because I play Triple Tactics Talent. I just want people to hand trap me. I don't give a shit. Like, you're going to hand trap me? Fine. I'll just play this broke as shit spell card. I don't really care about, you know, like playing Branded Lost. I also don't like this approach to the game where you're playing like, I would equate this, like if you play Edison format or older formats, I would equate this to playing Prohibition and naming Heavy Storm as opposed to playing Starlight Road. This is the exact same comparison, I would say. Prohibition name Heavy Storm. Sure, they'll never play the Heavy Storm, but that's assuming they draw the Heavy Storm. You know what I mean? Like, this is like much more applicable. This applies to like onboard effects. This applies to whatever. It just keeps you guys both playing the game. Whereas Branded Lost, it's annoying because like you play this and your opponent has cards in hand and you still don't fucking know. Like, you still don't fucking know if they have Ash or Dead Bells or whatever. You still don't know if your Branded Lost is actually ever doing anything. Whereas Triple Tactics Talent, you know that your card is doing something. Straight up. If your opponent hand traps you, you activate this, you're getting an effect. Like, you know what's up, and your opponent lost the card. I want my opponent to run out of cards. I'm trying to play that kind of grind game with this deck. I want them to play their cards. I don't want them to be like have all their cards in their hand and me be having to play around all this other shit because they have 6 cards in hand or whatever. I don't like that shit. I don't like that shit. I just like the play style of playing Triple Tactics Talent. I actually had 3 over the one Forbidden Droplet, but right now I'm trying the one Forbidden Droplet because you do kind of lose to some setups. One of the setups that you lose to is Vanity's out of the Drytron deck, Vanity's Ruler, and you can high roll hitting a Droplet in that matchup, and it makes it a little easier. It's just like a third card that you can have to interrupt that. You can play the Crows to maybe stop Benton, and you can stop the, you play the Forbidden Droplet to stop them from getting to the Vanity's Ruler, but that matchup's fucking tough. Branded Drytron, if they go first, it's not easy. It's not easy. You don't play a lot of hand traps, so you have those, and then you have Snow, but usually they're able to set up some sort of disruption to stop the Snow, like a Herald of Orange Light or whatnot. So, yeah, you got to be careful of that. And that's the main deck. Oh, no, wait. There's one more card. Despia, Theater of the Branded. This card's insane. This card's really, really good. You play this. It's like Branded Lost, but your opponent plays their cards, which I like a lot more. Branded Lost is like, it adds some stuff. It adds some flavor, some spice to the deck. It lets you play some other like jank shit, like Albion. What's that guy? This guy, the Shrouded Dragon, or the Mercurier. This hand trap. You can tutor a hand trap. That's cool. It's cute, right? But I want to play 40 cards. I want to play the best 40 cards. I ain't trying to play this like cutesy shit. Where was I? Oh yeah. Despia, Theater of the Branded. It's similar. It's like you make your play, and then your play sticks. If they ever try to out your stuff, they just can't. Like, let's say you make a Mirror Jade, just a Mirror Jade, and you have an Aluber engrave. With Despia, Theater of the Branded, it is so difficult to out. They out the Mirror Jade, and then your Aluber activates, special summon back the Aluber. They out the Aluber, you special summon back the Mirror Jade. The Mirror Jade's not hard once per turn. You can activate the effect again. You nuke their board in the end phase. It's like, it actually makes the grind game so impossible to lose. If you have this, plus Mirror Jade Aluber, it's like, it is really, really hard to lose. It's a solid card too. It helps you extend. Like, if your opponent, let's say like you read they have Ash for Branded Fusion. Normally you should Ash the Aluber, I think, because you never know if they have Branded Lost or whatever. But if they, like, let's say they don't Ash your Aluber, and you think they have Ash because they're like think on the Aluber or whatever, you can just grab Despia, Theater of the Branded, and then fusion summon, like hard fusion summon, and then create a board that's like really, really hard to float, and they have a dead hand trap. This card's actually really, really difficult to out. Some people are still playing Ogre, which outs this, but I think it's fallen a lot out of favor. Okay, a few things I'm not playing. So I talked about Branded Lost. I'm not playing the Adventure Package. The reason I'm not playing the Adventure Package is because it costs a lot of money, and it also, I think, makes your deck less consistent, which is kind of weird to say. It adds like these temple cards, which you want to play 3 of, but drawing multiples of this card is not great. it makes it so like your normal summon Owlbear doesn't do anything. I don't know. I'm not sold on it. It's obviously very powerful because the Griffin Rider and the token stuff is very powerful. It lets you start with more cards than usual. And it's very powerful with the edge imp stuff. But I'm not sold on it. I'd rather just play 40 cards. I'd rather just play the best 40 cards. And I think that you're like adding something to the deck to add like random bursts of power. But you're also adding this like extra like potential for inconsistency. Potential for like opening Draco back, Griffin Rider, whatever. I really don't want to play bricks. I am not about playing bricks. That's why I'm not playing Fusion Destiny. I'm not playing any of that stuff. Yes, Fright for Patchwork is bricks, but it's not bricks up front. Like, it's not bricks turn one, which is what matters, I guess. You get what I'm saying? You get what I'm saying. You get what I'm saying. So yeah, that's the reason I'm not playing the adventure stuff. I think it is good. I think it is measurably good. I don't think it's better than not playing it. I actually think the pure build is more consistent. I think it has more game. I think it has more active hands. I think it's just overall better. I think it's overall better to play the pure build. Just because the pure build's so cracked right now. You get to play 3 of everything. It's so good. Sideboard stuff, again, I'm not sold on the Ghost Girls, but I do love Effect Veiler. I think Effect Veiler is very solid. This card is very hard to chain block. You can use multiples in the same turn. It's a light, which is great because I can fuse with it to make my fusion monsters. And it's just an all-around like catch-all. There's a lot of decks where Effect Veiler is actually pretty solid. It stops a lot of openings that can be problematic. It stops like Lubellion, that kind of shit, if they don't go for comedy. And sometimes people don't read the Effect Veiler in this deck. I think this is why one mix-up. A lot of people are not playing hand traps right now. I am playing Effect Veiler in the sideboard. So post-board, I'm going to bring these in the mirror, and I'm going to catch them off guard. They're not going to be ready for it, basically. Yeah, triple token collector. This is a concession to the Sword Soul matchup. I think the Sword Soul matchup is very bad. I actually think it's the worst matchup with this deck. I've played a lot of Eldritch. I've played a lot of Sword Soul, and I've played a lot of the Mirror. I think the Mirror is very fun. It's very skill intensive. I think Eldritch is very fun. I think it's very skill intensive. I think Sword Soul is just a rough matchup, especially like the Brave Sword Soul version, the Adventure Sword Soul version. So you gotta have this guy. You gotta have this guy. He's a must-have. He sucks. He doesn't do anything for your deck outside of stop Sword Soul, but I think you have a versatile enough main deck. Your deck is very solid. You can afford the silver bullets in the side for a bad matchup. So I think you gotta have him. The 2 Forbidden Droplets. Again, this is for like board making stuff, like the Drytron deck that makes vanities. Those decks where you just need to like negate their shit and then OTK them. I think it's not a great card. I don't love Forbidden Droplet. One thing I was experimenting with was Forbidden Chalice, actually. I think this card's a little bit better than Forbidden Droplet. Yes, they can respond to it. I get that. But Forbidden Chalice doesn't take a cost. It's just like a one-shot negation. One thing that I've also messed with is there's a card called, what is it, Witch. It's like Condemned Witch. I messed with this card a little bit. This card's interesting. It's a little slow. But when you normal summon it, you get to add a Forbidden Quick Play spell from your deck to your hand. So it Stratoses either Droplet or Chalice. And then during your opponent's main phase, you can Quick Effect, Tribute it, special summon a level 4 fairy monster from your deck. So it's like an extra starter that can tutor Droplet that you can tribute during your opponent's main phase to special summon Owlbear, which is cool. I think that's really solid. And then worst case scenario, it's a dark fairy level 4 that like helps you make fusions and stuff. I think it's a really interesting card that is underexplored in this strategy as like a starter that helps you find the important cards, which are the forbidden cards. I think this plus like 1 chalice or 2 chalices plus a droplet or something could be a cool package. I'm not really sure how it would work out in this deck. Maybe in a post-banless world, this card gets a lot better. As of right now, I think it's a little too slow, but interesting card to talk about when talking about the forbidden spells. Necroworld Banshee and Zombie World, you get to send the Necroworld Banshee off of Branded Fusion and pretty much OTK a lot of decks where their monster type matters, like Floandrees and Dragon Link. Very good there. And then, of course, 5 spell and trap removal. I think Cosmic Cyclone is one of the best cards ever printed in terms of spell and trap removal. It's no bullshit. Banish a card on the field, quick play, everything you want out of a card. I like it a lot more than Twin Twisters because this deck is actually very resource intensive. If you look at all your payoff cards, right? Outside of Branded Fusion, outside of specifically Branded Fusion, Branded Opening takes a discard. Polymerization, Super Polymerization, both of these take discards. Branded in red, it takes discards if you want to make a fusion. Branded Theater card takes discards. Fucking, there's another thing that takes discards. Albaz, yeah, that guy, he takes discards. So you're very discard intensive, and having another card that needs to discard cards on top of that, it basically restricts your plays. Like against Eldritch, let's talk about this, right? Let's talk about this. Against Eldritch, let's say you go first. and you draw Twin Twisters. All right, you have a thing that pops 2 spells and traps. They set 5, right? You want to blind pop 2 of those. Let's say they reveal Heavenly Lord, which is like in every Eldritch deck, like right, Heavenly Lord of the Sky Prison. You can't pop shit anyway until it flips face up, and 1 floodgate shuts you off anyway. So like, it's just you're forced to use Twin Twisters on 1 spell, and you're forced to discard it. And destroying is not good because you can't do it like blind because of Lord of Heavenly Prison, and like, it's just not good. It's just not good. I don't know how to say it, but Twin Twisters is just not a good card. I think Cosmic Cyclone is a very good card because banishing is insane. All of the spells and traps that fucking matter, even if you're like, let's say you brought it in the mirror match for some reason. I don't know. Maybe the mirror match has a floodgate or whatever. Let's say they set Branded in red, right? They set Branded, set fucking Super Poly or whatever, and you brought in your Cosmic Cyclones. You hit their Branded in red, you banish it. That's actually super good because then they can't tragedy it back. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's just so good to banish it, I think, in the current metagame and in Yu-Gi-Oh! In general, that it's just better. It's just better. Trust me. Trust me on this one. Cosmic Cyclone, way better than Twin Twisters. Harpy's Feather Duster, gotta have it. It's a sweeper. I think this card's a staple. I think you could straight up, like, probably main this shit. It's fucking sick nasty. In the mirror match, it's really good because, like, oftentimes they'll end with a couple set cards, maybe like a Called By or a Super Poly, Branded Red. Usually they'll end with a set Branded Red and 1 other set card in the mirror match. And if you're going, for game, if you have your own Super Polys, your own shit, you need a way to break through, so you just Feather Duster their shit. I actually think this card's quite good in the mirror match because they're often, like, their turn 1 board, like, let's say they go first, right? They're playing going first. If you bring in Harpy's Feather Duster, it just, like, pretty much guarantees your plays are going to go through. And if your plays go through, then you're Gucci gang. You know what? You're big chillin'. Red Reboot is an OTK against Eldritch. So right now, the sideboard is very geared towards Sword Soul, very geared towards Eldritch, and a little bit geared towards the mirror if you want to bring in the spell and trap removal. And then you've got things here and there for Floranderies and various, like, tribal matchups that may cause you problems. I think that's all you really need for the sideboard. Oftentimes, you're not going to be sideboarding with this deck. Oftentimes, the main deck 40 is perfect. Maybe you'll change like 1 or 2 cards here and there. But the main deck 40 is really, really solid, which I like a lot. Let's talk about the extra deck. So the 2 main cards you make in the extra deck are Lubellion and Mirror Jade. Lubellion makes Mirror Jade, and then you make Lubellion using Branded Fusion. Those are the 2 main guys you make. I talked about the opening play a little bit. Branded Fusion, send Tragedy, send Albaz, make Lubellion, pitch a card, and then shuffle back either Lubellion or any fusion in your grave, and then you shuffle back the Albaz that you send off the Branded Fusion, and then you make Mirror Jade. And Mirror Jade, this guy is what we got to talk about. This guy's fucking insane. You can only control 1 of him, which is a big deal. He is like limited while in play. I don't know how to describe it, but yeah. Once per turn, not hard once per turn, by the way, which is awesome. I love effects that are not hard once per turn. Do more of this, Yu-Gi-Oh, please. It makes for such fun gameplay because you can just you can do so much more cool things. You can send 1 fusion monster from your extra deck that mains Fallen of Albaz as material, banish 1 monster on the field, untargetable. Also, he cannot use this effect next turn. So if you use this effect on your turn, can't use it on your opponent's. Vice versa, use it on your opponent's, can't use it on yours. It's a solid effect, very, very solid effect. And then on top of that, if this card is, or if this fusion summon card, I got to specify this because oftentimes it's not fusion summon, it's in play, so you don't get this effect. But when it is fusion summon, and it leaves the field because of an opponent's card, you can destroy all monsters your opponent's controls during the end phase. I think this is so sick. This is one of the coolest cards coolest effects of this card is he's a Mirror Jade, right? Like, he's made of mirrors. There's this theme in Yu-Gi-Oh, like Mirror Force themed. He's like very on brand, which I think is so sick. Mirror Force, Mirror Jade, and they like destroy your opponent's board. And when he leaves, he Mirror Forces you. It's so cool. It's like such a cool like thematic theme. And it's cool because it only happens when he's fusion summoned. So you can't really abuse this effect, which I like. I like that they included that little clause to make sure that you can't abuse it. And it's a very powerful effect, but it does happen at the end of the turn. So you can still get OTK'd. You have to be careful of that. It's not immediate. It's a very like back and forth interactive type of effect where, I don't know, it just promotes longer games. And I really like it. I really like this card. I like how it's not like just you can send an Albion from your extra deck or whatever to Solemn Judgment something. I'm happy they didn't do that. I'm happy it's just a banish. Because banishing something, it's fine. Like, you can still get effects off. You can still play the game through a banish. But At the same time, a banish is pretty detrimental, but it's not like, I don't know, it's very interactive. It's such a sick card. This is a card you make a lot in this deck. This is like going to be a very popular card. If you're not used to it yet, get used to it. And then Albion, the Branded Dragon, this is the card you usually send for his effect, because this guy, if he's in your graveyard during the end phase, you get to search or set a Branded Spell or Trap. So if you activate Mirror Jade on your turn, you usually set Branded in red, so you have that as an interrupt on your opponent's turn. And if you activate Mirror Jade on your opponent's turn, you usually search Branded Fusion, so you have that as a play on your turn. That's pretty much what you usually do. Albion, the Branded Dragon, and Lubellion, the Searing Dragon, they use dark and light monsters. And then Mirror Jade can be made with Fallen of Albaz and any one extra deck monster that, any one of the extra deck monster types. So you can summon Fallen of Albaz, pitch a card, eat an extra deck monster, and then make a Mirror Jade that way too, which is partially why Fallen of Albaz is so fucking insane. It's very easy to board break, and I've actually considered playing this card, Dark Ruler No More, and a third copy of Albaz, just so I can make that play. And I break their board, I end on a Mirror Jade, I'm usually big chillin'. I don't care, I can't deal damage that turn, I'll kill him next turn. That's just how it goes. Those are the three main Albaz fusions, and then the fourth one I play is Titaniclad. There are some OTK setups where you use this card. He basically gains attack when you fuse with him and another one. He's like a big beater. And then if he's sent to the graveyard during the end phase, you can add to your hand or special summon one Fallen of Albaz. You don't play any of the Dogmatica cards. But basically, if your opponent, if they nib you or something, you can chain Mirror Jade, send Albaz, or not send Albaz, send Titaniclad, and then in the end phase, you special summon out the Albaz, pitch a card, fuse off with their their Nibiru into Albion effect activate, and then end on another Mirror Jade. So even if you get nibbed, because you have this Titaniclad, you can end phase set up the second Mirror Jade, which is so broken. It's so broken. It's actually so good. I like this. I like this guy a lot. I think he's pretty important. Definitely include him. The other guys, I don't think they're that good, the other Albaz guys, but I think these four are the ones you got to play them. You got to play them. I play 2 Guardian Chimera. I make 2 almost every single game. It is the most broken card that Konami has printed in a really long time. He is Pot of Greed and destroy a card, or he's Icarus Attack and draw a card, which is like, holy fuck, that's insane. And then on top of that, he's absolutely massive, attacks over every relevant threat. He's untargetable as long as you have Polymerization in the grave, which means he's very difficult to interrupt or stop. And then you can also use Despia and Comedy to make sure to force his effect through. Auto +3 on the summon and a 3300 body. Fucking stupid card. And you can special summon it on your opponent's turn using Branded in red. So it's very difficult to know when it's coming, basically. Very, very difficult card to deal with. This card is a god card. I think this card, I'm going to go out on a limb. I think this card should be banned. I think this card it breaks all of the rules of Yu-Gi-Oh! It is way too powerful. It's way too powerful. If they were to hit this deck, I think they should ban this card. This card's fucking insane. For the Despian fusions, I got 2 Masquerade. You do need 2, because double Masquerade setups come up very often. And the Despian Quertus, this guy is, I think he's very good. He's very good in the grind games. He gets a special summon from the deck if he leaves the field. So you get a special summon out Fallen of Albaz or an Alubert or whatever Despia monster from your deck if he dies, which is sick. That's fucking cool. It's actually really, really good, because you can break your opponent's board if they break this by grabbing Fallen of Albaz, or you can get follow-up by going Alubert into Branded Spell, or you can get fucking Dramaturge and have an even bigger beater if they kill it. So he floats really well, which I think is sick. He's very good under Skill Drain because, again, he gets the effect when he leaves the field. He has this other effect, which can turn your opponent's attack monster, or all monsters actually, not just your opponent's, all monsters on the field currently to 0, except for level 8 or higher fusion monsters, so he can help you go for game, which is cool too. I think this card's great. You gotta play him. I think the other Despian fusion, I think it's Proskenian. Don't play this card. I think this card is trash. I think this card is very bad. Yeah. It's obviously like, the effect is insane, but your extra deck is very limited. It's very, very limited. You only have, I think, so if you consider the first 12 of the extra deck mandatory, and you need at least 1 or 2 super poly targets, then you really only have 1 slot to play with. I think this card you either play it over Linkuriboh or you don't play it at all. I don't know about this card. I don't think it's very good. There's another card I'm gonna talk about in a second that I might play over the Linkuriboh instead. But yeah, for the Super Poly targets, you got Predaplant, Dragos, Despia. This card's great. It's just got built-in Effect Veiler, so it's like an extra little negation you can go into. This is usually, well, I don't want to say it's usually. It's one of the cards you can make in the mirror match off Super Poly. I actually much prefer making Starving Venom and just killing my opponent because this guy is fucking dummy sick. This guy, I also include him because I think Dragon Link is a little bit of a scary matchup. And there's a few other matchups like Heroes that are very scary unless you include this guy. I think this guy makes those matchups a lot easier. A lot easier, actually. And he's got 2 relevant effects. He's really good to make into Floor, too, because like you make him and then you activate the effect to gain attack. And if they don't negate that, you run over the floor. And if they do negate that, then you blow up their whole board. So it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of thing. I think he's much better to make into Floor than Dragos Despia because Dragos Despia is weak as shit. He's only 2,700, so he doesn't get over Floor on his own. He only negates the effect, but that doesn't do much when your opponent has bigger attack than you. So I think Starving Venom Fusion Dragon is the truth. And then for the last monster, I am playing Linkuriboh. The reason I'm playing Linkuriboh is because if you start with Despian Tragedy and branded in red, and that's it, you can at least make a Linkuriboh. And that's it. Another thing is you can sometimes have hands. This is a very rare hand, but this is where it comes up. If you have double DD Crow and you have one other monster and you have a polymerization and you need to make Chimera, and then you can link off one of your DD Crows into Linkuriboh, and then you have 3 different names because Chimera requires 3 different names. So that's it. But I think if you were to cut a card, you would cut the Linkuriboh. You would cut it for Proskenion. The reason I like Linkuriboh over Proskenion is Proskenion never comes up, and Linkuriboh comes up. And Linkuriboh also fixes bad hands, whereas Proskenion just makes your good hand where you're already resolving Super Poly even better, which I don't think you need. I don't think you need that extra power there. I think you need to improve your small chances, like improve your B game basically. Yeah, is what I would say. And that's it. I mean, that's the whole deck list. There's a lot of different stuff you can play in this deck. You can play any light or dark monster and it wouldn't be wrong. But I think this is the best 40. This is what I've been playing. This is what I brought to a locals the other day. I did really well at the locals. I'm going to bring it to a locals again today, actually, and have a good time with it. I was going to get a game, but this recording kind of went long. This is a 47-minute deck tech. Holy shit. If you guys made it through all of this, I'm impressed. And I don't really want to deal with Dueling Book today. I want to go play some paper Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm working on the paper videos. Those should be coming within the next 2 weeks, ideally. I just need to find someone to play with who's pretty good at the game and then figure out the setups. If you guys are excited for that, let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. See you guys later. Peace.